Number 1. Interesting facts about Cambodia. In many countries, when young men reach adulthood, they are called to serve in the military. However, in Cambodia, in addition to military service, many young men also spend time in monasteries for a period of 3 to 6 years. This is not only a religious obligation, but is also seen as a phase of personal development. Life in the monastery allows them to engage with Buddhist teachings early on, learn discipline, humility, and respect for the community. During this time, many also participate in labor, learn to chant scriptures, and assist with the daily activities of the local community around the monastery. Perhaps it is this process that leads to Cambodians, often being described as gentle, honest, and straightforward. In many rural areas, harvested crops can be left to dry in the fields with little concern about theft, which is quite rare in many other places. Another interesting aspect of Cambodia reveals a stark contrast. While daily life is relatively peaceful, the training of security forces is extremely rigorous. To become police officers, trainees must endure intense physical conditioning. There are training sessions where they must stand in the sun for long periods while enduring strikes from their instructors to test their pain tolerance and reflexes. For Cambodia, this is a way to select individuals who can withstand real-world pressures. Additionally, Cambodia has a family culture that is quite different from many Southeast Asian countries. Children are often given their mother's surname rather than their father's. This practice stems from the historical influence of matriarchy. Consequently, in marriages, many families opt for a bridegroom-taking arrangement, where the man moves in with his wife's family, rather than following the customary practice of bringing the bride home as seen in many other places. Few people know that Cambodia also has some very unique approaches to education. In the past, when families could not afford tuition, many would bring food to school as payment. Today, in some areas, tuition can be paid with recycled waste such as plastic bottles or metal cans. This method not only provides poor children with the opportunity to attend school, but also helps reduce waste. Not only schools, but Cambodia also has cafes that allow customers to bring in trash in exchange for drinks, turning waste into a valuable form of exchange. Finally, one thing that many tourists remember about Cambodia is its street food. For many, dishes made from insects can be off-putting due to their appearance. However, in Cambodia, fried crickets, dried frogs, and stir-fried larvae are very popular dishes, sold throughout the streets, and have become a familiar part of daily life for the locals. Number 2. Countries with unique marriage customs. In Cambodia, there is a tribe with a very unique custom. Parents build a separate house for their daughters to choose their partners. This tradition belongs to the Cunning people, who live in the northeastern mountainous region of the country. When a girl reaches adulthood, usually between the ages of 15 and 18, her parents will construct a small hut right next to the main house. This hut is referred to as the love house. Once she moves into the love house, the girl has the right to invite any young man she is interested in to visit her in the evenings. They will chat, get to know each other, and if they feel compatible, their relationship may continue to develop. If not, the girl can completely end the relationship and meet someone else without facing pressure or judgment from her family or community. The process of choosing a partner can last for several weeks, months, or even years, until the girl finds someone she truly connects with. At that point, both will inform their families and move towards marriage. What is particularly special about this custom is that all decision-making power lies with the girl, from whom she invites to the love house to whether or not she chooses to marry. The role of the parents is mainly to respect her choices and provide ceremonial support when the marriage takes place. In addition to this custom, in some rural areas of Cambodia, there exists a surprising belief that daughters are expected to know how to smoke before getting married. Smoking, especially traditional rolled cigarettes with a strong aroma, is seen as a symbol of maturity, strength, and the ability to endure hardships. Many girls start learning to smoke around the age of 6 or 7 as part of their growing up process. Families believe that if a daughter has never experienced the spiciness, pungency, and bitterness of tobacco, she is not yet ready to face the challenges of marriage. In some places, there is also the belief that a girl who does not know how to smoke will find it difficult to get married, as she may be viewed as weak or disrespectful of tradition. Moreover, Cambodians have another interesting custom of hanging pink curtains in front of their homes when their daughters reach marriageable age, usually around 16 and older. The pink curtain or cloth serves as a signal to the entire village that the daughter in the house is ready to marry. If a family has multiple daughters, they will hang several curtains at once, often layered at the main entrance. These curtains will remain until each daughter marries, and whenever someone gets married, one curtain will be taken down. Number 3. Cultural shocks. When arriving in Cambodia, when traveling to Cambodia, many people quickly notice a rather unique aspect of daily life. The use of two currencies, the riel and the US dollar, simultaneously. This dual currency system can sometimes confuse foreign tourists, as not all places accept both. There are times when you pay in dollars, but the change is given in riel, making it a small challenge to check the denominations, especially in the bustling atmosphere of local markets. However, this dual currency system is not the most intriguing aspect for visitors. An even more interesting detail is that Cambodians often dislike receiving the $2 bill. If you present this denomination, many people will smile, shake their heads, and suggest exchanging it for another bill. This may seem puzzling, but the reason is quite logical. The $2 bill is very rare, even in the US, where it is seldom used. The US government prints a limited quantity, mainly for commemorative or collectible purposes, so it hardly appears in everyday transactions. In Cambodia, where US dollars circulate through tourism and remittances, denominations like $1, $5, or $10 are much more common, while the $2 bill is nearly absent. Because it is so rarely encountered, many people worry that it might be counterfeit or are uncertain about its value, leading them to refuse it. Additionally, some folk beliefs suggest that the number 2 carries an unlucky connotation in business, further decreasing the acceptance of this bill. Therefore, in large hotels or tourist areas, staff may still accept the $2 bill, but will often quickly pass it on to another customer. In traditional markets or rural areas, this denomination is almost never used. Another surprising aspect for many is how Cambodians determine addresses. In many cities, houses are not clearly numbered as they are in Western countries. Instead of referring to house numbers and street names, locals often give directions by describing locations, such as near a temple, opposite a cafe, or behind a large bank. This stems from the fact that many residential areas have developed organically over a long time without a unified planning system. Moreover, in Khmer culture, temples play a central role in the community, so they are often used as landmarks for giving directions. For this reason, tourists should not rely too heavily on Google Maps, but should ask tuk-tuk drivers, who are familiar with the streets and interact with tourists daily. As you stroll through the streets of Phnom Penh or Siem Reap, you may also easily spot mirrors and Buddha statues adorned with colorful LED lights in cafes, restaurants, or even ordinary homes. For Western tourists, this decor might seem quite unusual. However, for Cambodians, it holds deep spiritual significance. They believe that the light reflected from mirrors and lights helps ward off misfortune while attracting positive energy. Many families also believe that illuminated Buddha statues at night protect the home and provide a sense of security for its members. Number 4. Married life with Cambodian women. Cambodian women have long been highly regarded in Southeast Asia, not only for their appearance but also for their lifestyle and personality. They typically have a slender figure, the characteristic brownish-yellow skin of a tropical climate, and harmonious facial features with small eyes and a moderately high nose. However, aside from their looks, have you ever wondered what life would be like in a long-term relationship with a Cambodian woman? First, let's talk about dating. Cambodian society is generally more traditional compared to Thailand or Vietnam. For many Cambodian women, love is often associated with seriousness and long-term commitment. Premarital relationships are still not common, especially in rural areas. During dates, they usually expect men to take the initiative in paying for meals, gifts, or special occasions. In larger cities like Phnom Penh or Siem Reap, modern lifestyles have had a greater influence. Some couples may split expenses in a Western manner, but this is still not the norm. If the relationship progresses towards marriage, it's important to know that the bride price still plays a significant role in Cambodian culture. The bride price typically ranges from about $1,000 to $5,000. For families with better financial means, this amount can sometimes be higher. Notably, the bride price can be negotiated. Both families will sit down together to agree on an appropriate amount. In many cases, this money is seen as a starting fund for the young couple, to be used for the wedding, housing, or living expenses in the early years of marriage. Marrying a Cambodian woman also means becoming a part of her entire family. In Khmer culture, family is always considered central. Therefore, as a son-in-law, you may frequently participate in family meals, festivals, memorial ceremonies, and large gatherings. For those accustomed to a more private lifestyle, this can be somewhat overwhelming. However, for Cambodians, it is a way to express connection and respect among generations. After marriage, the traditional family model remains quite prevalent. Cambodian women often take on the responsibilities of childcare, household management, and financial oversight. Many husbands, after going to work, will give most of their income to their wives to manage, keeping only a small amount for personal expenses. This is not a strict rule, but it is a familiar image in married life in Cambodia. So, if you were to marry a Cambodian girl, would you be willing to hand over all your money for her to manage? If yes, comment with a 2. If no, comment with a 0. Number 5. Taboos of the Cambodian people. In Cambodia, if you plan to build a house for long-term stability, the first thing you need to do is not to choose a design, but to check the calendar. This is because if the construction period coincides with a time known as Phnom Penh, or what the Khmer humorously refer to as the month of the dead, most people advise postponing the project. During this time, Cambodians believe that the souls of the deceased return to the earthly realm to visit their descendants. Therefore, important activities such as building a house, buying a car, or opening a store are thought to bring bad luck. Some even jokingly say that building a house during this period is akin to inviting the entire world beyond to attend the groundbreaking ceremony. Not only do they avoid certain times, but the Khmer also pay special attention to the direction in which they sleep. If you enter a house and see a bed facing west, you are either in a morgue or the homeowner is not Khmer. For them, the west is associated with the image of the setting sun and symbolizes death. Only the deceased are allowed to lie with their heads facing this direction. Living people who sleep that way are considered to be inviting misfortune, and it is even joked that they are shortening their own lifespan. In many traditional families, rearranging the bed is seen as a way to avoid bad luck if the household has been experiencing a series of unfortunate events. Pregnant women in Cambodia also have their own set of taboos. One of them is that they should not cut their hair during pregnancy. According to folk beliefs, cutting hair can weaken the mother's spirit and affect the unborn child. Many traditional families also advise pregnant women to limit their makeup, fearing that it might provoke jealousy from spirits and bring about misfortune. Although science does not confirm these beliefs, for the Khmer, it is always better to be cautious. For newborns, spiritual protection measures are even more strictly observed. In the first weeks after birth, parents often avoid calling the baby by their real name. They believe that the infant's spirit is still weak and vulnerable to negative energies. Instead, temporary nicknames like Little One, Kitten, or Bird are used to divert attention. Only when the official naming ceremony is held is the real name used. When a family member passes away, directly calling their name, especially in the evening or during the month of Chumben, is also considered something to avoid. The Khmer believe that calling the name of the deceased can prevent their soul from finding peace, or worse, cause them to return, thinking someone is calling them. Therefore, they often use general terms like that person or the spirit, especially during ancestor worship ceremonies, where everything is kept in the most stable state possible. Number 6. A country with a scarce elderly population. Currently, Cambodia has a population of over 17 million people, with more than 50% being under the age of 25. The median age in this country is around 26 years. In comparison, the median age in Vietnam is about 33 years. In Thailand, around 40 years, in the United States 39 years, and in Japan it reaches 49 years, making it one of the countries with the oldest populations in the world. These comparisons illustrate that Cambodia truly belongs to the group of countries with the youngest populations globally. At first glance, such a youthful demographic structure may seem like a significant advantage, as Cambodia possesses a plentiful supply of young labor. However, few people realize that the reason behind this situation is closely tied to a profoundly tragic period in the modern history of the country. From 1975 to 1979, Cambodia was under the rule of the Khmer Rouge, an extremist political movement led by Pol Pot. The name Khmer Rouge comes from Khmer, referring to the majority ethnic group in Cambodia, combined with the color red, symbolizing the extreme communism that this movement pursued. The Khmer Rouge aimed to create an absolute agrarian society, where currency did not exist, there were no social classes, and everyone was required to work equally in manual labor. To realize this ideal, the Khmer Rouge carried out large-scale purges, including the arrest, torture, and execution of those deemed a threat to the state. The victims included intellectuals, teachers, doctors, artists, monks, educated individuals, those who had lived in urban areas, as well as ethnic minorities and religious followers. Even behaviors such as wearing glasses or speaking foreign languages could be seen as signs of intellectualism and become reasons for punishment. In just 4 years, over 2 million people lost their lives, equivalent to nearly a quarter of Cambodia's population at that time. Most of those killed were adults and the elderly, particularly those aged between 30 and 60. As a result, to this day, only about 4.5% of Cambodia's population is over 64 years old. Simply put, Cambodia's young population is a consequence of the country having very few elderly people left. If you want to learn more about this historical period, you can watch the film First They Killed My Father, directed by Angelina Jolie. Number 7. A poor country, but everyone drives luxury cars. One surprising thing for many people visiting Cambodia is that despite the average income being just over $2,000 a year, cars are quite common on the streets. And these are not old, worn-out vehicles nearing the end of their lifespan, but rather familiar brands associated with the middle and upper classes in the U.S. or Europe, such as Mercedes, Lexus, or Land Cruisers. In fact, in Cambodia, some people even use a Lexus to transport grass for their cattle. It may sound hard to believe, but the reality is that out of every 10 households, 3 to 4 own a car. The reason Cambodians can easily purchase cars lies in the country's relatively lenient vehicle tax policies. Import taxes on cars are much lower than average, and the government allows the import of used vehicles with very few restrictions on age or quantity. As a result, cars that once cost tens of thousands of dollars in the U.S., Japan, or Europe can be brought to Cambodia after several years of use, refurbished, and sold for just a few $1,000s. With cars becoming so accessible, ownership is no longer a privilege of the wealthy, but is within reach for the middle class, and even for ordinary workers. However, motorcycles still dominate the streets of Cambodia. The country has about 6 to 7 million motorcycles in circulation daily, one of the highest ratios in Southeast Asia relative to its population. You will easily see families of 5 riding on an old motorcycle, mixed in with newer scooters weaving through the busy traffic. Wearing helmets for passengers is not always required, and many people still ride without one. In rural areas, it is quite common to see children sitting in front of the handlebars. Tuk-tuks are an indispensable part of Cambodia's transportation system. These 3-wheeled vehicles serve daily commuting needs and are also a familiar mode of transport for tourists. Fares are usually negotiated directly, making haggling almost mandatory. Many drivers also take on the role of tour guides, sharing stories about the city, introducing attractions, or providing local insights. For first-time visitors to Cambodia, tuk-tuks are often the quickest way to get acquainted with the local pace of life. In rural areas, transportation takes on an even more unique character. Agricultural vehicles carrying many people, slow-moving ox carts on major roads, or motorcycles pulling long trailers are very common sights. Almost any wheeled vehicle is utilized for transportation and cargo. At first glance, Cambodian traffic may seem quite chaotic. People rarely stick to their lanes, overtaking wherever there is space, and tuk-tuks can stop in the middle of the road to pick up passengers. However, interestingly, the atmosphere on the roads is relatively calm. There are few honks, and arguments are rare. The calmness and habit of yielding among Cambodians make the traffic, despite its disorder, not overly stressful, creating a unique characteristic of the streets here. Number 8. The most powerful empire in Southeast Asia. Few people know that from the 9th to the 15th century, Cambodia was once the center of one of the most powerful empires in Southeast Asia. At that time, the Khmer Empire encompassed a territory of over 1 million square kilometers, covering much of what is now Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. With its extensive influence and significant military strength, records from China during that period acknowledged the Khmer as the greatest power in the south and a potential threat to the mainland. The political and religious center of the Khmer Empire was the Angkor complex, with Angkor Wat being its most prominent structure. This site is both a temple complex and the largest religious monument in the world, spanning over 1,600 square kilometers. Angkor Wat was built in the early 12th century under King Suryavarman II, initially serving as a Hindu temple for the royal family, before gradually transforming into a Buddhist temple by the end of the 12th century. Recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1992, Angkor Wat is not only a source of pride for Cambodia, but also regarded as a treasure of world archaeology, revealing the remarkable construction skills of ancient kingdoms. It is estimated that the complex utilized around 5 million tons of sandstone and was built over 35 years with the involvement of approximately 300,000 laborers and 6,000 elephants. Scientists believe that, based solely on the technology of that time, the construction could have taken hundreds of years to complete. Another great mystery that remains unsolved is how the ancient Khmer managed to bond millions of tons of stone without the use of mortar. Despite being considered an architectural masterpiece, Angkor Wat is also associated with a darker side that is rarely mentioned. To complete the project, hundreds of thousands of people, including women and children, had to work under harsh conditions in the jungle, lacking food and medical care. Some archaeologists suggest that to speed up the process, the king allowed workers to eat only one meal a day. As a result, around 50,000 people lost their lives during the 35 years of construction. Additionally, to secure financial resources, the Khmer Empire frequently waged wars and plundered neighboring territories. In just 8 years, the Khmer launched 3 attacks on the Dai-Viet border while also engaging in battles with Myanmar and Thailand to capture prisoners and seize resources. Although he was once seen as a ruthless ruler, King Suryavarman II left behind a legacy of immense value for present-day Cambodia. According to data from Cambodia's tourism sector, approximately 50% of international visitors come here solely to witness the Angkor Wat complex firsthand. Number 9. Phnom Penh, the city of heritage. Phnom Penh is the capital and also the most populous city of Cambodia, with a population of over 2.2 million people. It serves as the political, economic, and cultural center of the country, and is a popular destination for tourists due to its many historical and cultural landmarks that reflect Khmer heritage. Among these, the Royal Palace stands out, having been built in 1866 and still serving as the residence of Cambodian monarchs today. For those who may not know, Cambodia is currently a constitutional monarchy, headed by King Norodom Sihamoni. Currently, the Royal Palace allows visitors to tour certain areas, including the Inner Court, the Throne Hall, and the Silver Pagoda. The area where the king resides with the royal family is always closed to the public. If you see the royal blue flag flying atop the palace, it indicates that the king is present. When visiting, tourists are required to dress modestly, covering their shoulders and knees, and should avoid wearing shorts or sleeveless tops, as this is a sacred space with significant national ceremonial meaning. Within the palace complex, the Silver Pagoda is the most attention-grabbing sight. It is named for its floor, which is laid with over 5,000 pure silver tiles, weighing a total of about 5 tons. Unlike typical temples, the Silver Pagoda does not have resident monks. It primarily serves to house religious treasures and royal symbols. Inside the pagoda, many valuable artifacts are displayed, the most notable being the Emerald Buddha, carved from precious crystal and a sacred symbol of the royal family, along with the gold-plated Maitreya Buddha, which weighs over 90 kilograms and is adorned with more than 2,000 diamonds, including one that is 25 carats. Additionally, the pagoda houses many ancient treasures from the Khmer Empire or gifts from other nations. To explore Phnom Penh, visitors can choose from various modes of transportation, such as tuk-tuks, taxis, cyclo, or bicycles, to truly experience the urban rhythm. A must-visit destination is the National Museum of Cambodia, built in the 1920s. This is the largest historical and cultural museum in the country, housing over 14,000 artifacts dating from prehistoric times to the Khmer Empire. providing viewers with a deeper understanding of Cambodia's historical and artistic development. Phnom Penh is also closely associated with one of the most tragic periods in Cambodian history, the Khmer Rouge era. To learn about this period, visitors can go to Choeung Ek, also known as the Killing Fields, where thousands of executions and mass burials took place. Another location is the S-21 prison, now transformed into the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. Previously a high school, it was turned into a notorious detention center under the Khmer Rouge, where individuals deemed enemies of the regime were imprisoned, tortured, and executed. Today, many areas remain almost intact, featuring cramped cells, iron beds, and original images and documents, providing a haunting and direct insight into this historical period. Number 10. Tonle Sap, the largest freshwater lake in the region. Cambodia is home to Tonle Sap, the largest freshwater lake in Southeast Asia, often regarded as the heart of the country. Tonle Sap is famous for a rare natural phenomenon in the world, the seasonal reversal of its water flow. During normal times, water from the lake flows out into the Tonle Sap River, which then merges into the Mekong River system, the largest river flowing through Cambodia and several other Southeast Asian countries. However, when the rainy season begins and the water level of the Mekong rises, a massive amount of water from downstream is pushed back, causing the flow of the Tonle Sap River to completely reverse. Instead of flowing outward as before, the water from the river floods back into the lake, significantly expanding its surface area and submerging the surrounding fields and wetlands. When the dry season arrives and the Mekong's water level drops, the flow changes direction again, with water from the lake flowing out, returning the land to the people for cultivation. Each time the river reverses its flow marks the beginning of the peak fish breeding season in Tonle Sap. The floodwaters carry silt, fish eggs, and young fish from the Mekong into the lake, creating ideal conditions for hundreds of species to thrive. As a result, Tonle Sap has become the largest source of freshwater fish in Southeast Asia, providing about 300,000 to 400,000 tons of fish each year, accounting for nearly 60% of Cambodia's total inland fish production. Not only is it a remarkable natural phenomenon, but Tonle Sap is also home to over 1 million people. Most residents live in stilt houses built along the water's edge. And when the rainy season arrives, the rising water level makes the entire village appear to float on the lake. From a distance, this scene evokes a sense of Venice, but in a much more rustic and intimate way. Interestingly, the majority of the residents in the floating villages around Tonle Sap are not Cambodian but Vietnamese migrants who came here in the 1950s during the war. At that time, the Cambodian government did not allow them to settle on land but permitted them to live on the water. Over time, these Vietnamese communities have gradually developed, forming more than 170 floating villages scattered around the lake, creating a unique cultural blend between the two countries. Number 11. The scam paradise of Southeast Asia. In recent years, Cambodia has occasionally been dubbed Scambodia by some segments of the international online community, a play on words combining scam and Cambodia, referring to the increasing prevalence of cross-border fraud in the country. Although not an official name, this nickname somewhat reflects the reality highlighted in numerous reports by the United Nations and international organizations, as Cambodia is viewed as one of the hotspots for online scams and forced labor in Southeast Asia. According to Human Rights Watch, since 2021, tens of thousands of people from countries such as Vietnam, China, the Philippines, and Malaysia have been lured to Cambodia to work in scam centers. They are often enticed by attractive job offers, but upon arrival, their documents are confiscated, they are detained, and forced to participate in online fraud activities. Many face threats, violence, or are sold to other organizations if they fail to meet targets. Interpol estimates that hundreds of millions of US dollars are embezzled each year from scams originating from these centers. Most scam operations in Cambodia disguise themselves as technology companies or customer service centers. Externally, they operate like legitimate businesses, but internally, they are scam factories, with hundreds of people coerced into working every day. The scam process typically begins with building trust. Employees impersonate acquaintances, investment experts, or bank staff to approach victims, offering financial advice or introducing wealth-building opportunities. Some groups even establish romantic relationships online for weeks before convincing victims to transfer money. Certain networks create fake investment platforms, displaying fictitious profits to lure users into depositing more money, only to cut off contact and seize all funds. Many organizations have expanded their operations to countries like Laos, Myanmar, or the Philippines to evade crackdowns. The clear division of roles, diverse tactics, and adaptability of these networks have made investigation and dismantling efforts quite challenging. In response to international public pressure, the Cambodian government has implemented several strong measures to address the issue. In 2023, law enforcement agencies collaborated with relevant countries to dismantle over 100 suspected scam operations, rescuing thousands of victims and exposing numerous organized crime groups. Simultaneously, the government has tightened visa management, enhanced monitoring of foreign-owned businesses, and intensified cooperation with international organizations to improve investigative effectiveness. Number 12. A nation full of tricks. Cambodia's national sport is actually an ancient martial art called Bokator. This martial art was historically used to train soldiers during the Angkor Empire, featuring techniques that mimic the movements of tigers, snakes, birds, and crocodiles. Over the centuries, Bokator fell into obscurity and faced the risk of disappearing. However, it was later revived, and in 2022, it was officially recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage. Just a year after receiving this honor, Bokator unexpectedly became the center of an unprecedented controversy in Southeast Asian sports. In that year, Cambodia hosted the 32nd SEA Games, the largest sporting event in the region. During this edition of the Games, the host country decided to completely remove Muay Thai, a sport well known at the SEA Games, and replace it with Bokator. This decision quickly faced strong backlash from many countries, particularly Thailand, where Muay Thai is considered a strong sport. In addition to Bokator, Cambodia was criticized for using a large number of naturalized athletes in various events. At the same time, the host country also eliminated or reduced the scale of many sports in which other nations had an advantage, such as pencak, silat, wushu, fencing, and some athletics events. These changes led many to believe that Cambodia was deliberately trying to create an advantage for its athletes to win more medals, thereby enhancing the country's status. Historically, Cambodia's performance at the SEA Games has been quite modest. On average, they have only won about 10 gold medals per edition of the Games. In contrast, Thailand, the sports powerhouse of the region, averages around 78 gold medals per edition. Vietnam, despite having participated in only 18 SEA Games, also averages about 70 gold medals. Given the context of being sandwiched between two strong sports nations, it is understandable that Cambodia sought to make a mark by hosting the Games. At the 32nd SEA Games, they achieved an unprecedented milestone, winning a total of 81 gold medals, the highest number in the history of Cambodian sports. Number 13. The monopoly of politics. Cambodia's politics is considered one of the most controversial models in Southeast Asia. The country operates under a constitutional monarchy, where the king holds a symbolic position as the head of state. Currently, this role is held by King Norodom Sihamoni. However, actual executive power does not reside with the monarchy. For over 38 consecutive years, Prime Minister Hun Sen, leader of the Cambodian People's Party, CPP, has controlled nearly the entire political system, from the government and parliament to the executive apparatus. In form, Cambodia still conducts elections and allows multiple parties to participate in the electoral process. However, over the years, the CPP has employed various measures to eliminate or weaken political opponents. A notable example occurred in 2017 when the Cambodia National Rescue Party, the largest opposition force at the time, was dissolved by the Supreme Court on charges of plotting to overthrow the government. Since this event, elections have lacked genuine competitiveness, and the National Assembly has come to represent almost exclusively one party. The concentration of power reached its peak in 2023 when Prime Minister Hun Sen announced the transfer of his position to his son, Hun Manet. Although the transfer was carried out within the legal framework, the fact that the successor is his biological son has raised many questions about the true nature of democracy in Cambodia. Many opinions suggest that this is a form of succession with a dynastic flavor, masked by the facade of an electoral political system. Number 14. Mysterious locations in Cambodia. Koh Ker is one of the most debated sites in Cambodia when it comes to unexplained phenomena. Located deep within the dense forests of the northern part of the country, Koh Ker served as the capital of the Khmer Empire for a brief period in the 10th century. The centerpiece of this archaeological site is the Prasat Tom Temple, a structure built in the form of a step pyramid, standing over 30 meters tall. What draws attention is the orientation of the entire complex. Instead of following the east-west or north-south axes, like most other Khmer structures, Prasat Tom is constructed at an angle of about 15 degrees off-axis. When using a surveying compass, many research teams have noted that the needle in this area often fluctuates unusually. However, geological studies have not found any large metal deposits or strong magnetic structures to explain this phenomenon. The fact that such an important power center was built with a skewed orientation remains an unanswered question. Another mystery at Koh Ker involves the giant stone statues that were once placed in the area. According to archaeological records, there were hundreds of deities and spirit statues here, many weighing several tons. Today, most of these statues have disappeared, yet there are no clear signs of transportation. There are no drag paths, no sliding grooves, and no suitable loading docks that would fit the dense forest and hilly terrain. Some stone bases still bear fixed pins, indicating that the statues were placed there for a long time before vanishing. How these massive stone blocks were moved from such a remote area like Koh Ker, given the technical conditions of that era, remains a question without a clear answer. The second site is Phnom Penh, a mountain range located northeast of Siem Reap, considered the birthplace of the Khmer Empire. Here, there exists an inexplicable phenomenon related to the Cambodian River. Beneath the river, researchers have discovered thousands of carvings of lingas and symbols of the god Vishnu directly etched into the bedrock. These carvings stretch for hundreds of meters along the river's flow. What is puzzling is that most of the patterns can only be clearly observed during the dry season, while for most of the year, they are completely submerged. This raises questions about the original purpose of these carvings, as they were not designed to be easily visible. The arrangement of the symbols at Cambodian also does not follow a familiar order. Some sections are densely packed with lingas, while others feature horizontal images of Vishnu along the water flow, a rare layout in Khmer art. More notably, many carvings are located in very hard-to-reach positions, even when water levels are low. This suggests that ancient people must have worked directly under the river, in slippery conditions and strong currents, yet left no clear traces of water diversion systems or supporting tools. To this day, both Koh Ker and Phnom Penh still contain many details that remain unexplained, keeping these two sites on the list of Cambodia's great mysteries. Number 15. The country with the fastest growing economy in the region. For many years, Cambodia has been regarded as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. From 1995 to 2019, the country maintained an average growth rate of 8 to 12% per year, approximately 3 times higher than the global average. This pace has allowed Cambodia to quickly escape the group of low-income countries and significantly improve the living standards of its people in major urban areas. The most important driver behind this growth is the textile industry. Many products from international brands such as H&M, Uniqlo, and Nike are produced in factories located in Phnom Penh, Kampong Speu, and various other industrial zones. According to the World Bank, the garment sector has accounted for 60 to 70% of Cambodia's total merchandise export value for many years. Currently, over 700 garment factories are in operation, employing more than 800,000 workers, which is about 10% of the country's workforce. With a minimum wage of around $204 per month, along with tariff incentives from the EU and the US market, Cambodia has become an attractive destination in the global supply chain, particularly in the affordable fashion segment. In addition to textiles, Cambodia has also emerged as a casino hub in Southeast Asia. The country has legalized gambling and developed nearly 200 casinos, primarily concentrated in Sihanoukville and border areas. These casinos attract customers from Thailand, China, and Vietnam, where gambling activities are restricted. In 2019, Cambodia's casino revenue reached nearly $2 billion, contributing to the growth of tourism, real estate, and services. Notably, Sihanoukville has transformed rapidly and is often referred to as the Las Vegas of Southeast Asia in less than a decade. Besides these two sectors, Cambodia continues to play an important role in agriculture, with key export products such as rice, cashews, and pepper. Tourism is also a significant economic pillar, attracting over 6 million international visitors each year. And here are 15 interesting facts about Cambodia. I hope these 15 facts have provided you with a fresh perspective on this fascinating country. If you found the video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming journeys. Which fact impressed you the most? Please leave a comment below. We would love to hear your thoughts. The information is for reference only, so please do your own research before making any decisions.